Hello, it is Helen with So Kind of Wonderful, and this video is all about the Dragonfly block from Floral Felicity. We make it 2 times in the quilt, and it finishes at, well, it's unfinished at 13 by 8 inches. It's very straightforward and fun to make, so let's get busy making the Dragonfly block. All right, let's make the Dragonfly block from Floral Felicity. The Dragonfly is 2 times in the quilt. It is here and here. So we have it in zone 7 and zone 10. So this video instruction works for both of those dragonflies, even though the colors change. And so when we're looking here, if you're making a scrappy quilt, you didn't, cut fabric from the cutting instructions back here for using a certain amount of yardage, then you can cut here for a scrappy version. When you're looking over here, we're looking at zone 7 today. That's the one I'm making. If you're making zone 10, these are your colors according to the quilt on the front of the book. All right, so when we look at the pattern, first thing we are doing is checking here. And here we see orange text. So that tells us that we are going to be using the orange lines on the Wonder Curve ruler for this pattern. And this first set of shapes, these are all curves. And how do we cut these curves? Pattern tells you go to pages 6 and 7. And this tells you how to cut the different curve shapes using your Wonder Curve ruler. All right, at this point, I think everybody knows what's going on. And I'm not going to flip back and forth, but I will walk you through it. So we have pre-cut. So and our great labels that are included in the pattern. So I'm just going to take these off. And I just keep them stacked by fabric. And then the first one I'm working with is wing 1, which is this fabric. And here I should have 2 3.5 by 3.5 and 4 2 1/4 by 4. And yes, that's what I have. So for this one, doesn't matter if they're right side up or right side down. We are making a shimmer A. So we are positioning our Wonder Curve ruler. This is how the instructions have it. Let me just get rid of that little light reflection there. So here what I've done is I've lined up the fabric right on the orange, solid orange V. And we're just using a regular 45mm rotary cutter. And I'm going to cut in the curved slot. And I keep the blade on the convex or the hump. And that way it doesn't dig into my acrylic ruler as it goes around the curve. Okay, this is my A shape. I have 2 of those. And this is discard. All right, next we have, working with the same wing 1 fabric, we're going to make 4 twist C's. And the pattern shows I need 2 right side up and 2 right side down. So if I just do it how it comes off the bolt, and I've kept it cut, I have 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down. So I can keep those stacked, or I think I'll do it 2 at a time here. So I have 2 up, 2 down. And for this one, this cut on the twist C, I'm using the dashed orange line. And I'm putting the fabric right here down at this V and cutting in the curve slot. I keep this, throw this away. Let's do it one more time. And at this stage, you know you're still going to sew a seam, maybe even a couple seams on some of these blocks, and then square it up. So at this point, it's, you know, it's not about accuracy, like everything is, obviously you have to line up in the right spot, but it's more about getting the right shape and making sure your fabric is either right side up or right side down. And go ahead and separate, okay? All right, next one we're working with is Wing 2 fabric, and we are doing the exact same cuts with Wing 2 fabric. So we're making shimmer A, and again, lining up the solid orange V on the V of our 2 squares. Throw this away. And then doing the same thing for these 4. I'm going to cut all 4. I have a good sharp blade. I'm really good at cutting at this stage. I've used the Wonder Curve ruler a lot. I'm just lining up on my dashed V, the orange one. Throw this away. And now I have my shapes, okay? All right, next thing we're cutting is the body. Body is the black fabric. And this is, I need 4 of these. And they are 2 up, 2 down. Okay, so I have those 2 and these 2. And I'm doing the twist C shape. So the same one we just made. I feel very comfortable cutting all 4. Just make sure there 2 are right side up and 2 are right side down. And I'm using the dashed orange V and put the fabric right here and then cut in your curve cutout slot. Notice when I cut that I've got my, my finger over here is helping anchor the ruler. I've got lots of pressure. Throw away that little piece. And here. Okay. Let's see. We have one more thing we're cutting. We're cutting some background. We should have 2 4 3/4 by 4 3/4 we have. And then we have 12 2 3/4 by 4. And that's this one. All right, so first we're going to work with the 4 3/4. We are making the shimmer B. And first step on shimmer B, anytime we make shimmer B from just 1 square, we're cutting it in half diagonally. That's our very first step. And then I'll do this in 2 steps. Next, we are lining up the 90-degree corner on the 4 and the 4, and we're cutting off these 2 tips that are sticking out. We're still using the orange lines to make this. Now we rotate it, and this time we are lining up these corners in the solid orange box corners right here and here. And then hold firmly and cut in your curve, cut out, And this gives you shimmer B, cut with the orange lines. Okay, let's do 2 more. It doesn't matter if it's right side up or right side down. And I've just lined up those corners in the orange, solid orange box corners. And cut in your curve slot. Notice I don't go really fast when I cut. I mean, I can, but I feel like I get a little more control if I go a little slower on my cutting. And it helps me push down so that I get clear through all the layers. All right, for this one, we are making twist D. So we cut all those twist C's. We need a piece to sew them to. And here I need half of them right side up and half of them right side down. So I'm actually going to cut these 4 at a time. And I have them how they come off the bolt. They are wrong sides together here in pairs. I'm using the dashed orange line, putting that right on the V right here. So that's where my fabric is. And I'm cutting in the curve cutout slot. And for this, I'm only keeping the D side. The C I do not need. Put it in your safe pile. There's no way to cut the D without cutting a C. We've tried different methods, you know. So we always get some extra C's. So now we have 4 Ds. So I just need to do that with all of these. Okay, all of these are extra. I would save them just because they are a C shape in case you need a C. And go ahead and sort these at this stage. Just makes it easier when we go to lay out our pieces. So you should have 6 each direction. All right, all our curves are cut. Let's move on. All right, we turn the page. We are looking at step 3, sew the curves. And the first thing we're doing is we're just going to set up our sets that get sewn together. So we have 2 A's, and those go with the B. So I have 2 B's and 2 A's of wing 1, and then I have wing 2. Oh, let's make it look like the pattern. Okay, looks like the pattern. All right, wing 2, I have these. And then I have wing 1 of the C, twist C. And this needs to go with the D's. And then I have the other orientation here. Okay, let's do the same over here for the and this is a really good check because then you know if you've lost a piece, miscut a piece, when you're laying these out, these C and D pieces, if you put them together, they should look like a rectangle. So that's a little check for you. You know, have you got the right pieces laid out together? Okay, so these go here and this one here. Okay, so we are ready to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew. Remember, we always sew with concave on the bottom, convex on top. And the pattern will tell you if you leave a tail. So our first one to sew is the AB shape. And for this one, I'll show it again, but we know on this one that when we set it up at the sewing machine, we're going to keep concave on the left, convex flips over, and we leave a little 1/4 inch tail. So the B extends a 1/4 inch past the A. All right, I have all my A and B pieces here. So for setting it up, and these will be really easy to chain piece. You have B here, it's on the left, convex flips over, leave a 1/4 inch tail. Sew a couple stitches just till you sew through both fabrics. And then you just hold one piece in each hand, and as they feed, this is where the curved edge comes together, right here where it goes under the presser foot. Don't really try not to pull on either one, you're just bringing them together. Go ahead, do that with all of your A and B. You would just chain piece at this stage. And then for our C and D, here you can set them up so you sew all of the same one, the same orientation, so that you can chain piece that whole set and then switch to the other side, because you have two they are mirrored images, so you have 2 sets here. So I will show you both of those. So this is our first one, and we're still leaving a 1/4 inch tail. This is now my concave. It stays on the left, convex flips over, and 1/4 inch tail. So the D is a 1/4 inch past the C. Couple stitches. And then we just bring curved edges together and kind of hold it on the side as it feeds through. And it's a great method for sewing curves because you avoid the little pucker that can happen when you have concave on top. All right, so we're going to do the same thing for the other orientation, but now concave is still on the left, but we're starting from the skinny side here. And then again, just a 1/4 inch tail, so D extends, and I kind of have the curves so they kind of flow into each other. Anchor stitches. And here, if you need to, stop, lift your presser foot, reposition. The more you sew and the faster you go, the more flow you get. It works out nicely. Okay, so after I sew, I have a 1/4 inch tail on this end now. And again, no little puckers. So go ahead and sew all of your curves. All right, I have my iron on, but I'm going to add a little water Jenny and I both feel that when we are pressing our curves, if we use a little bit of steam, it really does help, because you're trying to train that bias edge which way you want it to go. All right, and you press on the back first. We're going to press to our focus fabric, so press away from your background on all of these curves. So I just press on the back, turn it over, press on the front, give it a little bit of steam. So that was one of my CDs. This is my AB. Just on the back, on the front. And go ahead and set them up in sets right now. So the ones that are all the same block, I just go ahead and, when I'm pressing, that's when I set them up so that when I go to square up, which is our next stage, then I'm all ready for square up and I have them sorted. I don't know if I'm giving you a good view there. I think that's better. Okay, so I'll finish pressing and then we're going to do square up as our next step. Okay, my blocks are sewn. They are pressed. I am ready for square up. When we are working on square up here, main thing is, you're looking at all the information in the picture and set it up the way that the picture shows. If you are left-handed, turn your pattern 90 degrees to the left and set it up with how it looks here. And then you can cut on the side and across the top. So the first blocks we are going to square up are the AB, and I'm trying to decide which one you'll see better. I think this one. All right, so on your Wonder Curve ruler, there are some printed dots over here on two sides. We are using the orange dot because we cut with orange lines, and we're placing the orange dot right here on the curve on each side. So position the orange dot right on the curve, and then we are squaring the ABs to 3 inches, and then check. Can you get 3 inches? Yes. If your block is really distorted and you have a really long tail, you might not be able to get 3 inches. That just means you need to unpick it, press it, and get it back to the right shape. Sew again without pulling on the B piece, because that can get really stretchy. Okay. Make sure that is in focus for everybody. And I'm going to zoom in. Zoom in on this. I'm putting the orange dots right on the curve seam. You've got the whole curve seam to play with. So if you have directional fabric, line it up with the marks on your ruler so that it looks good. Now I'm holding this firmly and cutting on the side and across the top. And then move your ruler, but don't turn it, just move it out of the way. Rotate your block, reposition with trimmed edges on the 3s. So trimmed edges right here on the 3s, and then trim whatever is left, because you've already decided where everything lives. Okay. All right, you're gonna do the same thing with all of your ABs. Okay, next is the CD. So we have 2 orientations. We'll work with this one first, and we are making 1 3/4 by 3. And our first step is we are placing the 1.5 inch mark on the curved seam, and then the orange dot is on the curved seam down on this side. And by placing the 1.5 here, it creates seam allowance for us. It tells that curve where it's going to live when all the blocks are sewn together. Okay, so side and top. Rotate the block. Now place the 1 3/4 and 3-inch marks on the edges you just trimmed here. And trim whatever is left. Okay, perfect. This is how our seam allowance was created there. And then we have one more to do. So this one, the point is on this side, and our orange dot is right on the seam. And then over on this side, we have the 1 1/2 right on the seam. Side and top. Rotate. Now reposition the 3 and 1 3/4. So I'm looking at 3 and 1 3/4 is on my trimmed edges. And then trim whatever is left. Okay, go ahead and square up all of your blocks. And remember, just look at the picture in the pattern and set it up the way it shows. I have all the curved blocks squared up. So now we're just going back to our pattern, looking what is our next step. We're actually going to start assembling the dragonfly, and we're going to start by assembling the body. So first steps is we're laying out the body, and this is what you have. So we're going to go ahead and sew these into rows, press seams open, and then sew the 2 rows together. Here is the dragonfly body sewn together. And you can see on the back, I pressed open, press open, and then when I sew them together, I press that open. At this stage, I am going to trim off a 1/4 inch off of one of these ends. Doesn't matter which one. Pick the one that maybe your seams didn't line up as nicely. And right now, this measures 5 1/2 inches long. So I am going to cut this to 5 1/4. So I'm just trimming off a 1/4 of an inch on this edge right there. Okay, so I've trimmed this side. Now we're going to add the long skinny tail body on a dragonfly. So we're laying out our background pieces here and our tail, or I guess, I don't know, what is this? Head, body, thorax. All right, we're getting really technical here. Insect. Oh, don't even ask, 4th grade teacher here. All right, so I have my background, body, and background. Sew these together. And how am I going to press that? You know, I am actually going to press to this. I just think it'll give it really nice dimension within the quilt. You could press that seam open if you feel like you're getting too many layers here when we sew it together. I have sewn all 3 pieces together. You can see I pressed to the body, and now I'm going to sew it onto the end that I trimmed the 1/4 inch off of. I'll sew here, and then I'll press that seam open. And then we'll talk about if I have too much bulk, because now I'm like questioning my decision here to press to the body. I probably should follow the pattern. Probably just press seams open. Okay, it's so much fun. And it should work out where those, you know, where this curve and this one come right together. It helps when you press the seam open here, and it just be a really consistent 1/4 inch sewer. Okay, now our body is done. Now it's time to work on the wings. So I think this is a really fun shape. This is a fun, oh, what's the word? It's just a fun dragonfly. I feel like this one is very dragonfly-ish. All right, so for here, we're just laying out our wings. And you can do multiple things, but we like the 2-color wings here. And then we are, let's see, this is what we're doing. So this one goes on this side. We've actually made dragonflies a couple times. We have another dragonfly pattern in our book called Many Wonderful Curves. So if you're into dragonflies, you're always looking for a dragonfly pattern. We've done it a couple times now. All right, so this is ABs here, and then these are all CDs. Just look at your orientation of the curve. And now what we're doing next is we're going to sew these into columns. Could you do this different? Yes. Okay, let's give you another option because everybody likes to kind of make it uniquely theirs. So you do have different pieces here. You could totally swap these. Let's see, which one am I swapping? Not that one. This one. So you could totally, you know, do it a teeny bit different. But we are going to do what the pattern shows because I do love how it has those multiple little ends to the wings here. I just have to kind of reprocess now that I've moved everything around. Okay, we're going to sew into columns here. Press seams open, sew these 2 columns together, and then sew these 2 columns together, and then we'll work at putting our body in. Here I have sewn the columns together. You can see I pressed seams open. Okay, so now we're going to sew these together, and then I'll press those seams open. Here are the wing sections sewn together and pressed all the seams open. Now I've laid it out here with the body, and then we have some other pieces here. So these are your other background pieces, and we're going to sew them into columns. So sew together, press seam open, and then we'll sew all 3 columns together. This seam here will not match this seam, so it should be off by 1/4 inch because remember we trimmed 1/4 anyway. You're going to be off. They will not line up, and they should not. Here is the butterfly, here's the dragonfly. Dragonfly from zone 7, all sewn together. It is 13 inches by 8 inches. So now's a good time to check. And if you need to trim up a little bit, it'll help with assembly later. Okay, I'm right at 13 by 8. Excellent. And excellent. Okay. Here you can see I pressed seams open here,